In the desert of southern Peru, giant shapes stretch across the ground for miles. Some are simple straight lines, some are geometric patterns, others are massive drawings of animals, a spider, a hummingbird, a monkey, even a figure known as the astronaut. From ground level, most of them barely make sense. But from the sky, an entire hidden world appears. These are the Nazca Lines. And for nearly a century, nobody has been able to fully explain why they exist. Who made them? Why were they built on such an enormous scale? And how did an ancient civilization create hundreds of massive designs in one of the driest places on Earth, without leaving behind any clear explanation? The mystery begins around 2,000 years ago. The Nazca civilization lived along the southern coast of modern-day Peru between roughly 100 BC and 800 AD. It was a harsh environment. Rain was rare, the land was dry and rocky. Survival depended almost entirely on controlling water. Despite this, the Nazca built complex irrigation systems, farming communities, pottery workshops, and ceremonial centers. They were not primitive. Their textiles and ceramics were incredibly detailed. Many showed supernatural beings, severed heads, animals, and ritual scenes. And somewhere during the height of their civilization, they began drawing on the desert itself. The Nazca Lines were created by removing the dark reddish stones covering the desert surface. Underneath was lighter-colored soil. By scraping away a thin top layer, the Nazca could create bright lines that contrasted sharply against the darker ground. Because the region is so dry and almost windless, many of these markings survived for centuries. Some lines are only a few inches deep, but many stretch for kilometers. There are over 800 straight lines, around 300 geometric designs, and dozens of giant figures known as geoglyphs. The hummingbird alone is over 90 meters long. The monkey stretches across the desert with a giant spiral tail. The spider is so precise that some researchers noticed it resembles a species found deep within the Amazon rainforest. And yet, the Nazca never left written records explaining any of it. No instruction, no map, no surviving explanation. Only the lines themselves. For centuries, many of the lines went unnoticed. People walking through the desert could see sections of them, but not the massive images as a whole. Everything changed in the 20th century. As airplanes began flying over Peru, pilots noticed strange giant patterns covering the landscape below. Suddenly, shapes invisible from the ground became clear from the air. The world was stunned. How could an ancient civilization create images so large they seemed designed to be seen from above? That single question triggered decades of speculation. Some theories were reasonable, others became wildly extreme. By far the most famous came from writer Erich von Däniken. He claimed the Nazca Lines were connected to extraterrestrials. According to his theory, the long straight lines were landing strips for alien spacecraft. The idea exploded in popularity. But archaeologists quickly pointed out major problems. The lines are too soft and shallow to support aircraft. Most are uneven, many cross hills and rocky terrain. And more importantly, humans can create large-scale designs without needing to see them from the air. Experiments later proved this. Researchers recreated Nazca-style geoglyphs using only wooden stakes, ropes, and basic planning. No advanced technology was necessary. But even after dismissing the alien theories, the core mystery remained. Why build them at all? One of the strongest explanations involves water. To the Nazca people, water meant survival. Without it, crops failed, communities collapsed. Some archaeologists believe the lines were part of large ceremonial rituals connected to water and fertility. Many of the straight lines appear to point toward underground aquifers or water sources. Others align with ancient pathways. Researchers also discovered ceremonial objects near some lines, including pottery fragments and wooden stakes. This suggested the lines were not simply pictures. People were actively using them. Some scientists believe groups walked along the lines during rituals. The desert itself may have functioned like a giant sacred space. Certain geoglyphs may have represented gods, animals tied to rain, or spiritual symbols connected to fertility. The hummingbird, monkey, and spider all had symbolic importance in ancient Andean cultures. And there is another strange detail. Many lines lead directly toward Cahuachi. Cahuachi was a massive ceremonial center used by the Nazca. Unlike a normal city, it appears to have been mainly religious. Large gatherings, rituals, and pilgrimages likely took place there. Some researchers think the Nazca Lines were part of these pilgrimage routes. The desert may have become a giant ritual landscape connecting sacred sites together. But this theory still leaves unanswered questions. Why create designs so enormous? Why make many of them only fully visible from above nearby hills or from the sky? And why invest such massive effort into drawings that offered no obvious practical purpose? Another major theory claims the Nazca Lines were connected to astronomy. In the 1940s, researcher Paul Kosok studied the lines and noticed that one appeared to align with the setting sun during the winter solstice. He called the area the largest astronomy book in the world. Later, mathematician and researcher Maria Reich dedicated decades of her life to studying and preserving the lines. She believed many of them functioned as a giant astronomical calendar. According to this idea, certain lines pointed toward important solar or stellar events. The Nazca may have used them to track seasons, helping determine the best times for planting and harvesting. It sounded convincing, but later studies complicated the theory. With hundreds of lines pointing in many directions, some alignments could simply happen by chance. Modern researchers found that while a few lines do match astronomical events, most do not show consistent patterns. That weakened the idea that the entire desert functioned as a precise observatory. Still, astronomy may have played some role. Ancient civilizations often connected celestial events with religion, agriculture, and ritual life. The Nazca could have combined multiple purposes together: ceremonies, pilgrimages, astronomy, water rituals. The problem is that none of the evidence provides a complete answer. Every theory explains part of the mystery, but not all of it. Some Nazca figures are especially difficult to explain. One of the most famous is the so-called astronaut. It appears to show a humanoid figure with large eyes and one raised hand. Unlike many other geoglyphs, it stands on the side of a hill rather than flat desert ground. Nobody knows exactly what it represents. Then there are the trapezoids, huge geometric shapes cut across the desert floor. Some are perfectly straight for astonishing distances. Maintaining such precision without modern surveying equipment would have required careful planning. Researchers believe the Nazca used simple tools like ropes and stakes. But the scale is still extraordinary. And even more lines continue to be discovered. In recent years, drones and artificial intelligence helped archaeologists identify dozens of previously unknown geoglyphs hidden across the region. Some are tiny compared to the famous figures, others were nearly erased by time. Many appear older than the Nazca themselves. This revealed something surprising. The desert was used by multiple cultures across different periods. The Nazca were not the first people creating geoglyphs there. The earlier Paracas culture likely made some of the oldest designs centuries before the Nazca expanded the tradition. The mystery suddenly became even larger. This was not a single project. It may have been a cultural practice continuing across generations for hundreds of years. Today, the Nazca Lines face a different threat. Not time, humans. Because the lines are shallow, even footprints can damage them. In some areas, tire tracks from vehicles permanently scarred parts of the desert. Illegal mining, urban expansion, and tourism continue putting pressure on the site. In 2014, activists from Greenpeace entered a restricted area near the hummingbird geoglyph, leaving footprints that damaged the ground. The backlash was immediate. Archaeologists warned that the desert surface can preserve marks for centuries. Once disturbed, some damage may never fully disappear. Climate changes also create risks. Although the region is normally dry, unusual rainfall events have occasionally damaged sections of the lines. The same environment that preserved them for nearly 2,000 years is now becoming less predictable. And despite decades of research, one reality remains unchanged. Nobody can fully prove why the Nazca Lines were made. Not with certainty. No single theory explains every line, every figure, and every design. The Nazca left behind one of the largest archaeological mysteries on Earth, but almost no direct explanation for it. The Nazca Lines were not hidden underground. They were not buried inside temples. They were placed openly across an entire desert. Massive enough to survive centuries, simple enough to be understood by the people who made them. Yet the true purpose behind them faded away. Maybe they were ritual pathways, maybe sacred symbols, maybe messages to the gods, maybe all of those things at once. But even today, flying above the desert of Peru, the same question still remains. Why did an ancient civilization feel the need to carve gigantic symbols into the earth itself, knowing that future generations might never fully understand them?